All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Going to be breaking down the top prop bets for week 1 here of the NFL season. Let's go ahead and get into it. And so what I'm going to do for this video is I'm going to go through each game and kind of break it down for you guys and just touch on which bets I think we are getting a decent spot on. And then at the end of the video, I'll give you guys my bet slip for week 1. But I do want to call it that next week, week 1, I will be going through and kind of showing you guys where we're getting the best edges via like Vegas odds and everything like that as well. So this is more going to be me trying to find edges based off of what we learned throughout the offseason and also training camp and being able to apply that to where we're getting some big prop line differences and whatnot like that. And so that's what this video is going to be. Then next week, we're going to do more of where Vegas is telling us we're getting good edges on Prize Picks, Underdog. So if you guys are someone that bets on different sites other than like Prize Picks, Underdog, which is typically what I highlight in this video, that's fine because we're not really concentrating on that type of, long-term profitability approach. And so I do want to start off with the first game, which is going to be Dallas versus Philly. We do know that Dallas just traded Micah Parsons, which is obviously going to leave that defense pretty poor for the Cowboys. Okay, and so with that, this game is expected to be a blowout. And so that's why when we're kind of looking at Jalen Hurts and his passing yards, it's pretty darn low. If we look at Dak Prescott and his passing yards, it's going to be pretty high because that is what the game script is kind of dictating. So it's expected that Dallas is going to be playing from behind, thus having to throw the football a decent amount. And so when we're looking at kind of the rushing yards as well, we're going to notice that Javonte Williams does have a very low rush line for him. Okay, I don't really love Javonte Williams. Honestly, I didn't think he looked good last year for the Denver Broncos. Had like 2 good games, and those were 2 primetime games. So maybe primetime Javonte Williams pops up again, but I do expect him to get a decent workload though in week 1. That being said, they are expected to be playing from behind. I don't want to bet on him in that regard. Maybe we get like a rushing receiving yards line we could target, but right now as it currently sits, I don't think it's worthwhile. And then given the game script, it wouldn't be surprising to see Saquon Barkley really go off in this game, and that would probably be the bet I would want to get to. If it's going to be assumed that Jalen Hurts is not going to throw that much, 214.5 is his passing yards line. That's a very low line. And we do see in the last game against Dallas, he also went off there. I am a little bit worried about Saquon Barkley long-term. This is something I talked about in like other videos, is that basically given his workload that he has gotten from last year, that running back that's ever gotten that much workload typically sees like a 20% drop in their production the next year. That still means he's going to be a quality fantasy football asset, and everything. And that's more for the season. But for week 1, I don't think we're too worried about that. And so I could see betting is over 93.5 rush yards. But I will say my kind of golden rule when it's come to the Eagles is when we're getting this big of a prop line difference between A.J. Brown and also Devonta Smith, bet on Devonta Smith because it should never be happening. Okay. It sounds weird to say, like they're the same talent level. It's just they're 2 different talents, meaning that if A.J. Brown was to get injured, I don't think Devonta Smith would have any difficulty slotting into that receiver number 1 role. His production would obviously go up. Same thing, vice versa. And so I don't think there should ever be this big a difference between the two. So I do really like Devonta Smith to get over 55.5 receiving yards. The issue, again, would be the game script where it just gets out of hand fast, and he's not part of the reason as to why. It's worth calling out that as I'm recording this video as well, Dallas Goedert is currently banged up. If he were to sit, that does elevate both Devonta Smith and also A.J. Brown. I am typically someone that does like to target more reception-based props as well. And I will say like Jake Ferguson at 4 receptions is a little bit intriguing. Again, given the game script that we're expecting in this game, he should step up into like about a 65% snap share in this game. I don't mind that there for Jake Ferguson, but again, we are probably just not needing to get there as much then. So let's go ahead and jump on into the next game, which will be the Chargers versus the Chiefs. And instantly, I will say one of my favorite bets really on the week, and I'm just betting on Justin Herbert having a great year, is his over passing yards of 224.5. Now, as I had forgot, this game is not going to be played in the United States, so we always have to worry a little bit about the field conditions. If you guys remember the Packers versus Eagles game, that was just kind of a disgrace. Just players slipping all over the place. It's surprising that a player didn't have like a significant injury there. It's just not a proper field. And so there always is that concern that like field conditions lead to like less predictability because there's just random plays that are occurring. that is a caution, but I will say the Chargers passing him to me is appealing, especially at the start of the season, because you got to remember they did draft Amarian Hampton, a rookie running back. I won't say he looked bad, but I wouldn't say he looked as impressive as his rookie or as his college film had looked. Whereas you look at like something like Travion Henderson, he actually looked better in the NFL than he did in college. That is always just something to note. Then you look at Najee Harris, who's having a little bit of an eye concern as well. I'm not expecting him to see a small role in that game. Like, I do think it could end up being a 50-50 split, but I do expect, at least at the start of the season, especially when you're going against the Chiefs, I kind of expect it to be a higher scoring game. And so that being said, I do like to get into Justin Herbert for over his passing yards. Now, if I like Justin Herbert for over his passing yards, is there someone else I can get to for their over receiving yards? Well, there is Keenan Allen there. Keenan Allen seemingly going to step up into the receiver number 2 spot. That's kind of the assumption, especially if Quentin Johnston's going to be out. I doubt that. He got knocked out of a preseason game because, honestly, he dropped a pass and then just got clocked. I think if he catches that ball smoothly, he probably ends up with a touchdown on that play. Very unfortunate for him, but that just further echoes the concerns with him. He should be good to go in this game by the time the game comes around. But that being said, I really would not be shocked to see Keenan Allen step up into that receiver number 2 role. And if he does, this is a very low line for him. So if you'd rather go that route, you can. Ladd McConkey, I think if we're looking at Ladd McConkey, we're probably looking at more of his receptions. 5.5 is a pretty low line for him, I think, consistently throughout the year. He's going to be someone that's going to be able to get this over. And so that's not a bad line for me as well. But I do want to talk about the tight end situation as well. To me, I think it's going to be Tyler Conklin that ends up starting for them. And if he does end up starting and playing his normal snap share, this is an egregiously low line for him. Okay. We do need to get that confirmation. It could be Will Dissly. You look at how Tyler Conklin has played throughout the years when he was with the Jets. He's been impressive. Okay. And even if he only plays 50% of the snaps, maybe even 40, it doesn't take that much for him to get this over. And so I do like this line. I think that's another wrinkle that people are just missing out on. Okay. This is more of a bet on his playing time. If the playing time's there, I do really like that over. Now, do I like this more than Justin Herbert for his passing yards? I kind of do. Then I do want to talk about another player as well in this game. Looking at more of the Chiefs now, Tyquan Thornton. Okay, so he is someone that's been very impressive throughout the preseason. He's been someone that's been getting a lot of hype out of camp, and that hype had continued, and then it showed up on film during some of the preseason games as well. And so with that, I buy into those narratives. When a player like that is like getting a lot of hype and shows it on field, like that is huge. He made the 53-man roster, and now with Rice being out, I kind of could see him step up into more of that downfield target. Okay. And with that, Tyquan Thornton, even if he plays 50% of the snaps, which he might not even do that. Okay. That could be a possibility where it's just Xavier Worthy, maybe Hollywood Brown, maybe a lot of 2 tight end sets. We don't exactly know what to expect from the Chiefs with Rice out, especially with kind of a little bit of a new look. Let's be honest, Justin Watson's no longer there. They do have Thornton there, who I do think is an upgrade. Okay. Justin Watson was kind of doing the MVS role. MVS really kind of was open a bunch for the Chiefs when he was on the Chiefs. I think Thornton's an upgrade from them. And so I am super interested to see what line we end up getting for Tyquan Thornton, because I'm probably going to bet the over. It's going to be a bet on his playing time, but he's been impressive. And if you want to take a dart throw on him to score a touchdown, I wouldn't do that on PrizePicks or Underdog. I would do that more traditional sportsbook. I do not hate that. I think that could end up being a good spot to get to, because again, my thought process was when Rice is out, Thornton's going to be that guy that takes the biggest step up in terms of fantasy relevance. And so that's what I would want to bet on then. As it sits right now, it's the only bet that we have. And I know what some people are going to say. How the heck is this guy talking about Tyquan Thornton, who could not even get it going for the New England Patriots? He was garbage for the Patriots. And we see that Patriots roster right now. It is still garbage at the receiver spot. I get it, guys, but it's more of the role with the Chiefs and just the steady drumbeat that's gone. Now, from there, for me, I do want to call it like Isaiah Pacheco has been getting some sort of hype in regards to his passing game usage. It would not be too shocking to see him get some work in this game, in the passing game. I don't want to get there. Xavier Worthy, his line seems to be correct to me, but I will say his reception line, does this seem like egregiously low to you? Again, with Rice out, I think we're going to see a lot of manufactured touches go to Xavier Worthy like we saw last year as well. Now, yes, we'd much rather bet on his over 4.5 receptions, but this is a spot where you could potentially even like move it up to 5.5 receptions, and that'd be a better bet for me. So, you can increase your payout there, and I think it ends up being a pretty good prop bet there. Now, I do want to call it, like, Isaiah Pacheco was impressive to me this preseason as well. Showed the burst that he really did not show once he returned from injury last year. So I am intrigued to see what he can do. I don't want to bet on that, though, just yet. All right, so now we go ahead and move on into the next game, which is going to be the Jaguars versus the Panthers here. And I will say, I am buying into Liam Cohen and really this offense here for the Jaguars. And you look at the matchup with the Panthers, and it should be a good matchup, whether it ends up being in the passing game or in the rushing game. That is to be seen. And I bring that up because we know the big story going on with the Jaguars is what is going to happen in regards to the playing time with their 3 running backs. I will say, guys, watching the preseason film on Tutton, he looked bad, like especially in regards to all the other rookie running backs who all look pretty good, and especially in regards to like fantasy football drafts and like best ball drafts, he is still going pretty high where you could get arguably some that look better and is in a better spot as well. It's like Ollie Gordon, Woody Marks, Kyle Managai. That's like a really good pick there. I just kind of want to keep reiterating that. Draft him. But Tutton, he has not looked good. And you look at Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby is more of a 3-down running back and has been someone that has consistently looked good. Well, last year, I should say, rookie year did not. And so, like, I think I'm almost rather trying to get to Tank Bigsby for his over of 40.5 rush yards because I'm more buying into him having that RB1 role and then Travis Etienne being more of a 3rd down running back. I still think it's going to be close, but I think Bigsby is going to be the one that ends up playing the most. Especially if you think that the Jaguars are going to win. This ends up being a much better bet because he will be that kind of grinder for them. Now, maybe Tutton ends up being the goal line back. I doubt that. I think it's going to be Bigsby. And so I don't mind that, but I think that ends up being a decent bet. But yeah, I don't want to really get to Travis Etienne, and I would be betting on an under for Tutton as well. But then we go ahead and look at some receiving yards lines. I do want to call us out here as well. If we were getting Enrico Dowdle prop bet for his receiving yards, I would probably be betting that over. Because I do think he will end up being more the pass catching down back for them. It was an interesting spot, I would say. I thought all last year I kept comparing Rico to Chuba Hubbard, where like the beginning of the season, Rico did not look all that great. He kind of each week he got better and better and better, which has kind of been Chuba Hubbard as well. Okay. And so I thought, and I still think that those two players are very comparable. But I do think more of the pass catching work is going to go to Rico. And so again, if we're kind of game scripting, maybe Tank Bigsby for his over rush yards, Rico for over his receiving yards. I think that ends up being a pretty good bet for us there. And then from there, we do need to talk about the receiver situation as well for both teams. Let's start out here with the Jaguars. So I found it very interesting, the trade that the Jaguars recently did, where they went out and acquired Tim Patrick. Okay, I don't know if that's more of a thing against Brown, Hunter, or Parker Washington. Okay, Parker Washington was someone I was pretty excited for, though. I thought he'd be playing more in this slot role in this offense, and so as a result, I was really liking him. We would need to get confirmation that he is going to start. If this line is still there and we get that news, that would be a bet that I would be going out of my way to target because he is a good talent. The fact that they had Tim Patrick does make me pump the brakes a decent amount with that. And so with that doesn't really leave us that many options in terms of who we could bet on there for the Jaguars in terms of the receiving lines. I'm not betting on Brian Thomas. I'm not going to bet on Travis Hunter. It's still kind of unknown to me. The one player I do like a decent amount is Brenton Strange, just because of his production last year with Trevor Lawrence as his quarterback. There seemed to be a good connection there, and they did move on from Evan Ingram. To me, that was a sign. And so I think Brenton Strange could end up being like this year's Tucker Kraft. And so I do like him as a talent. Could be a spot where you guys end up trying to get to some bets. And honestly, maybe you just go with his over receptions there instead. And now let's go ahead and get into the Carolina Panthers receivers. Also some interesting spots for them as well. So McMillan is someone that's currently banged up as the season is starting, but I don't think we have to worry about that too much. He has been someone that has stood out in camp. But then you also have like Xavier Legette, who they did just move on from Adam Thielen. You would expect him to really get a lion's share of the snaps on the outside. And we did get confirmation that Jalen Coker is going to be someone that's playing slot receiver for them. Now, he has gained a bunch of hype to the point where it's almost like, all right, why would we bet on Coker to get over 37.5 receiving yards when we get Legette at 30.5, who we know is going to be on the field more, most likely. I don't want to talk in absolutes in week one, but you guys get the point. That being said, I will say like Jalen Coker to probably get over like 3.5 receptions. I would agree that the line should be at 3. But for him to get over 3.5 receptions, I don't mind if he, again, is going to step up into more of that Adam Thielen role. And if you guys remember last year, he was kind of starting to take over as kind of the receiver number one for that team at portions. It was all over the place. It was Adam Thielen, it was Coker, it was Leggett, it was all over the place. But I really don't mind the idea of him for over 3.5 receptions. Again, assuming he's going to be playing more snaps and in that slot role. And if you think the Jaguars are going to win, that becomes a good bet for you. All right, so let's go ahead and get on into the next game that we're going to cover here, and that's going to be the Colts versus the Dolphins. And so the biggest question I have here with the Dolphins is whether or not they're going to be healthy, guys. Okay, so just looking at it, Devon Achane currently questionable. All reports are saying he's going to be good for week 1, though. Same thing with Tyreek Hill. Okay, if one or both of them sits, I do think the Colts end up being the team that wins this game. And if they end up being the team that wins the game, I do think we want to be targeting Jonathan Taylor a decent amount. I expect him to go off and really have a good game. And I will say, to me, a very intriguing bet then actually becomes his rush attempts line of 17.5. To me, it becomes a game where you just want to control the game via the ground game. And so for him at 17.5 rush attempts, that to me does seem to be one that just pops out to me because he should be the offense. He should, throughout the season, he's going to average over this. And again, if we're betting on the Colts to win, which I kind of am leaning towards right now, this ends up being one of my favorite bets on the week thus far. And then I do just want to call it that in general, for this game, we're not getting as many prop bets for the whole team. And I will say, if Tyreek Hill ends up sitting, Malik Washington would be the player I'd want to get to a decent amount. That being said, I do think Westbrook-Ikhine is going to be someone that is more involved than people think. Whereas Malik Washington's more of a handcuff to Tyreek Hill. I think Ikhine could be someone that actually is involved in this offense almost right away. And he's been someone I've been targeting a little bit of best ball drafts as well. Worth calling out as well, guys. DJ Giddings looked good as well. Again, going back to Baishal Tutton, if you are drafting him, I don't get it at this point. You get someone like DJ Giddings 3 rounds later, who is going to be the RB2, who's an ideal handcuff. I think obviously the production would fall off, but he steps up into a very similar role, and there's not a massive drop off to DJ Giddings, especially stylistically. Obviously the big plays and stuff, that's obviously reduced, but you guys get the point there. And I do want to talk about some of these Colts lines that we were getting. So A.D. Mitchell is someone that has had a really standout camp for the Colts. Wouldn't be surprising if he ends up having a good game, but it is predicated a little bit on Josh Downs. If Josh Downs ends up sitting, who's currently questionable heading into that week, we're probably just looking at Michael Pittman Jr. to have a really good game. And this is why we are seeing the lines be, I think, limited in this game, because we do have 2 question marks, obviously, Hill and Achane, if they're going to be active, but then also Josh Downs. Okay, if Josh Downs ends up sitting, Michael Pittman Jr., this becomes one of the best lines for all of week 1, regardless of if you like Jonathan Taylor or not. I know some people are going to dog on Daniel Jones. I think it's a quarterback upgrade. I think it's a pretty big quarterback upgrade, actually, especially in terms of offensive continuity and just offensive consistency as well. Drive by drive, play by play. I think that helps out a lot, and you get more long sustained drives. That's going to lead to more predictability, and this line just ends up being a great line for us to bet on there, up 46.5 on Underdog. Now let's go ahead and get into the Seahawks here versus the Niners, guys. One bet that I am getting to a lot, but it's also probably one of the more risky ones, is Kenneth Walker for over his rush yards of 63.5. I am a little bit cautious about the Niners defense, but to me, it's really just based off of how good every single Seahawks running back will look throughout the preseason. And that's more of a testament to the offensive line for the Seattle Seahawks. That is what I was impressed with. And also some of the running backs did look good. But you get Kenneth Walker in really an ideal offense for him with the lineman blocking extremely well. To me, that becomes much more appealing. And it is risky. I get that. But we could end up looking back at this line, I think, 4 weeks from now and be like, man, we had him at 63.5 and we're not betting on it. He's consistently at 80 now. I think that could end up happening. And I will say another bet that I kind of like in this game is going to be with George Kittle for over his receptions of 4.5. My assumption is going to be that Juwan Jennings probably not going to be 100% heading into that game. And then it's just going to be Ricky Pearsall. Okay. We're going to be looking at George Kittle, Ricky Pearsall as the pass catchers, a little bit of Christian McCaffrey as well for that matter. But 4.5 receptions then ends up being a pretty darn low line there for George Kittle. And I will say, I'm a little bit annoyed that we're not getting any Ricky Pearsall prop bets just yet. If he's going to end up with a line like George Kittle, 4.5 receptions, just hammer that over. I would probably still bet the over of 5.5 receptions. I'm really betting on Ricky Pearsall to have a good season this year. I do think he's going to step up into more of that Deebo Samuel role, but also be better than what we saw Deebo Samuel be really last year, I think for sure. He just kind of fits that mold very well now. It's kind of a bold call. I understand that. And so again, if it's at 4.5 receptions, I feel much more comfortable betting on that. But we're not getting lines for him just yet because Well, of this is all the Niners receivers. They're very thin there. And then from there, guys, not much to me for me there, but I will say AJ Barner, nice to see that he's getting 17.5 for his receiving yards. That tells me, well, we already knew, it's a little bit of confirmation here that he is probably going to be the tight end one. And maybe for DFS purposes, if you guys played there, you guys can think about betting on him. Now let's move on into the Minnesota Vikings versus the Chicago Bears game. Another spot here where I'm probably not attacking too much. I do think DeAndre Swift is going to be much more involved than people think, but I also think Kyle Managai is going to be someone that's going to be pretty darn involved as well. I know this is Monday Night Football game and kind of going out of order here, but whatever. Reports have suggested that's going to be a 1A, 1B situation. Not with Roschon Johnson, with Kyle Managai, a guy I've been hyping up all offseason. Could be a little bit of confirmation bias there, full disclosure. He has been someone that's been banged up as well. We need him to be good to go as well heading into that weekend. By all reports, that's what's been happening. They've been a little bit cautious with him. But let's just say he is banged up, guys. Extremely discounted line. We might see DJ Moore get some snaps out of the backfield, which is something that's occurred during camp. Okay, that is a worry. Okay, but Swift for over 49.5 is just really, really low line. And then we look at the other lines that we're getting here for this game, just in general. Again, probably not a spot that I need to go crazy with. I will say TJ Hawkinson last year did look a little washed to me watching the film. That could be two things. One, he is washed. Two, it was just him returning from a season or from an injury the previous season and returned mid-season. Never really was able to get up to his full health and correct football shape. Going through the normal offseason doesn't matter. And maybe it was that as well. So I'm very much watching for that. I'm not going to bet on anything there. Same thing with all the prop bets that we're getting here for the Bears as well. I just think it's a spot where we're probably just going to take a wait and see approach. If this was a standard line for DeAndre Swift, 1.5 receptions, I would hammer that home. I do think that DJ Moore is going to be heavily involved, but I just don't necessarily see the point of betting on really anything here. I am interested to see the role that Zacchaeus gets. He's been someone that's been getting a lot of hype out of Bears camp as well. But let's go ahead now and jump on into the next game. We're going to jump on into the Jets versus Steelers, another game where I'm just not that excited for it, guys. So Aaron Rodgers, I would expect him to be able to get this over. 210 is very low, okay? I don't know. Do you guys think the pass catchers are better, worse, or about the same for him this year? What about the offense? Better, same, or worse than last year? I think it's basically a push, I will say. And I know the Jets defense is supposed to be good, but Rodgers should be kind of prepared to play against them. And so that is an interesting line, 210 for Aaron Rodgers, really in any week. And I know some people are going to dog on his play last year. They clearly just didn't watch the film. They just looked at the record for the team. I do think if they had a better head coach or interim coach, I do like Robert Saleh, but obviously that didn't work out. But the leadership at the top was a little bit lacking. And I think Mike Tomlin offers a different element there in that regard. So you look at some of the games that the Jets lost last year that were just how the heck did you end up losing those games? And I do think a little bit of that is Aaron Rodgers. Don't get me wrong. There's just certain things that are there are things that you can't measure. Okay. What's the difference between Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers? I don't think there's many people that would say Tom Brady is the better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. Okay, I don't think many people are saying that. But when they say Tom Brady's the GOAT, what are they saying? They're saying some of those things that happen off the field that lead to on-the-field production, not necessarily for Tom Brady, but for his team. Okay, whereas with Aaron Rodgers, literally the exact opposite stuff. It was just how the heck do you guys lose that game on that way with that play? Kicker missing a field goal. A player having a fumble late in the game. Defense dropping a pick six or stuff like that. Or with Tom Brady, it was the opposite. I do think that that's a big difference, the leadership factor in there. Does that matter for prop betting? No. Some people can hate that take? I don't think so. I think it's kind of a normalized take at this point. But that's my long way of saying we did not see a drop-off from Aaron Rodgers last year. And it is a tough matchup against the Jets, theoretically. I don't always want to bank at matchups from last year. That's why I'm not talking about them too much. Defenses change, schemes change, offenses change. But very low line there for him. Now, I will say, looking at some of the rush yard lines, I'm a little bit worried about Breece Hall. I think at this point, we really shouldn't be seeing a big difference between him and Braylon Allen, just based off of all the hype that Braylon Allen has gotten. I do think this could end up being a 1A, 1B situation. And I'm really surprised that the Jets did not try to trade Breece Hall. To me, this seems very much like a purposeful lost season for them. They're not trying to win. They have Justin Fields as their quarterback. You're trying to lose. Get rid of Breece Hall. See what Braylon Allen can get you. I don't know. To me, that would have been the move, but I'm probably I don't really want to bet on any spots in this game too much so, just because both defenses should be good. Both offenses, kind of a new look offense for both of them. Don't necessarily love that. If Aaron Rodgers is going to get his over, Calvin Austin should just be a lock to get his over. And I say that because he is a little bit banged up as I'm recording this video. That is a concern. If he is healthy, Rodgers should benefit. And this ends up being one of the best lines, of the week as well. If Kevin Austin's playing, he should play at least 60% of the snaps. I do think we're going to have a ton of 12 personnel. Don't get me wrong. So 2 tight end sets. We're going to see a lot of Smith. We're going to see a lot of Freiermuth. That's going to happen. And so I don't think we can clearly say that Austin's going to play 50% of the snaps. But he is going to be the receiver number 2. He is someone that really impressed last year as well. As we can see based off his last 5 games, consistently got this over as well. And you get more of a pass-force quarterback as well than Russell Wilson, than Justin Fields. Much better line for me. So again, if he's healthy, we get to that one a lot. Now from there, ugly bets. I'd probably tell you guys to bet on the unders. I will say Jaylen Warren, though, for over 19.5 receiving yards, I do expect him to be involved in the receiving game. Maybe he could get to his over 3 receptions there as well. Great chance for it to be a push. Don't think we need to go crazy with that. And I do think, guys, Aaron Rodgers' offense, he is going to pepper his number 1 receiver. We just see that time in and time again. DK Metcalf to get over 4.5 receptions. I don't like to use the lock word too much, but this should be a great bet. It really should be. I kind of expect him to be force-fed, and so I'm betting this over a decent amount. I know, looking at last year's results, people are not going to like that. Completely different team, obviously. All right, so now we go ahead and jump on into the Commanders versus the Giants, Quarterback-wise, again, probably not touching much here, I am a little bit worried that the Commanders could get off to a slightly slow start with Terry McLaurin recently signing with them. We do see that with those players specifically. They tend to get off to a slow start, so don't necessarily love that. Austin Eckler is seemingly going to be the RB1, but I do want to call this out. Fascinating lines that we are getting here. So as the week started, in the running back room for the Commanders, the player that had the highest rush yard lines was actually Chris Rodriguez, which I found fascinating. And I do think that this ends up being a spot where either you're betting on one player to get the over and then maybe both the other players to get the under. I think that's a good route to go. But more specifically with like Chris Rodriguez and Bill, So Bill started the week at like 22.5 rush yards lines. It was like, what the heck is going on? And they ended up taking that away on a lot of sites. But I will say on Underdog, I went with this bet, 2.5 for his over first quarter rush yards. Not always a bet that I like to do because we're betting on them to get the coin toss as part of it, to get the ball first. That's also part of it because that could be the difference between 2 drives or 1 drive or 3 drives and 2 drives. That does matter. But that was a really low line, because at this point, when I got to it, some of the lines had already been bumped up to 27.5. And so now they're even higher. Very interesting spot there. And then just a couple of other spots. I do want to call out Theo Johnson to get over his receptions. If you guys think the Commanders are going to win this game, where the Giants are going to have to play from behind, Theo Johnson is the starting tight end. That's been very clear. And this seems like a very low line for him as well. 2.5 for a guy that played a heavy snap share last year. And it's a new quarterback. I get that. Russell Wilson probably not going to throw the football much. We don't necessarily love that. But the fact that this is going to be a boosted payout to me really does stand out as well because he is the pass catching tight end. We know that. They got rid of Greg Dulcich, who could have been that guy for them, who played well in the preseason, but Theo Johnson just should be that guy. I don't love the talent. He seems a little stiff for a receiving tight end, but all in all, who cares? He was productive last year. Ends up being a pretty darn good bet, I think. Now, I do want to stay with this spot here because, yes, we are getting a lot of different payouts, but Tyrone Tracy Jr. to get over 2.5 receptions seems like a great bet to me as well. A little bit of a game script bet if you guys think the Giants are not going to win. I kind of think the Giants could win this game, so maybe not a bet that I necessarily love. Wendell Robinson to potentially get over 4 receptions is a bet that I'd be inclined to bet on. He's someone that they intentionally got the ball to in short yardage situations. Russell Wilson, again, not necessarily Daniel Jones. We'll see if that ends up being a good thing or bad thing for someone like Wendell Robinson. But I will say, same offense coordinator, same coach, head coach. And so I do expect him to get a heavy target share still. And so for him to get over 4 receptions, I like. So really, all the pass catchers in this game, I seemingly like the reception lines. They're basically at where I'd be comfortable betting on them. Even Deebo Samuel. Again, if Terry gets off to a slow start, I would expect Deebo Samuel to get a few manufactured touches. My goodness, though, if we bet on this and 2 of his receptions are screens, which is something that happened last year, I'm going to be a little mad, because, if it's behind the line of scrimmage, it could end up being a rush. Don't like that, but I will say decent spots there for him. And now let's go ahead and get into the Cardinals versus the Saints. Obviously, not much here that we're going to love, I would say. I will say, like James Conner, you would expect him to get a healthy workload in this game. Just they are extreme favorites in this game, guys. So with that, maybe we could end up betting on James Conner to get over 15.5 rush attempts. The issue would be is if they get out to too early of a lead to the point where they're like, all right, our veteran running back's good. This game's locked up. Let's get Trey Benson going. I will bet on this because, again, just start of the season, I don't think we have to worry about that too much. Should be in for a great game. Again, assuming the game script, they are massive favorites in this game. And if that ends up happening, Connor to get over 15.5 receptions is a bet I really like. But then from there, really not much that I feel like is going to be worthwhile for us. Maybe Juwan Johnson to get over 2.5 receptions because he's like the healthy tight end that they have there. Maybe rather gets to him a little bit more, but it feels like we're forcing it there, guys. So let's just go ahead and jump on into another game here. Raiders versus the New England Patriots. We'll say Gentry's line to me seems a little bit too high going against the Patriots here, being a rookie as well. But also at the same time, not a bet that I feel like we need to go out of our way to target or not target. This is both teams are really teams where I'm like, all right, what are we going to see? It's kind of two teams that I'm like definitely paying attention to maybe for next week. The biggest piece of this game is whether or not Diggs is going to be ready to go for this game in like 100%. If he's not, then yes, Demario Douglas to get over like 4.5 receptions ends up being a very strong bet as well, especially if it's going to be an increased payout here, plus odds bet. Either way, though, like he's been getting a lot of hype out of camp, and Drake May, word out of campus, I didn't necessarily see it on preseason film myself, is that he has looked better than how he ended the season last year, which a lot of people are hanging their hat on. And so then Demario Douglas get over 4.5, ends up being an okay one, but really for me, guys, not much in this game for me. So again, kind of moving along. Moving into the Bucs versus the Falcons. This is a game where I do expect it to be a very high-scoring game. If you guys want to stack this game, I don't mind that. If you do that, then Michael Penix to get over like his passing yards becomes an interesting bet. An interesting spot, though, here is definitely looking at the Bijan Robinson. So first and foremost, this is a difficult matchup for the Falcons going against the Bucs, or it has been in the past. Again, we don't need to concentrate on that too much, but the Falcons' O-line is a little bit banged up as I'm recording this video. Two of their starters are banged up. And so although I do expect a healthy workload to go to Bijan Robinson, 79.5 rush yards does seem to be a little bit too high for me. And I know it was a little bit different if we're looking at what he did in these two matchups last year, guys. But one game he kind of struggled against them, having 61 rush yards there. And then the next game he did go up, but he was more involved in the passing game. Still only 63 rush yards in that game. And so it's a bet where if I'm trying to game stack, I do really like it more in that regard. I don't know if I'm like individually going on my way to bet on that. We do need the confirmation that those linemen are going to be out and then could end up being a spot. I think the buzz for Bucky Irving would actually lead to this bet probably getting a little bit higher as the week gets closer. And just this game in general, people are going to like this game. And so I could see myself waiting and seeing. But again, in a game stack, bet on his under. And then we're looking at some overs for the pass catchers. Now, who could we bet on the overs with? By all reports, it would be Drake London and Kyle Pitts. So Drake London's just been getting peppered with targets, I guess, in camp. And then you also have Kyle Pitts there, who golf buddies with Michael Penix. I'm kind of buying into that. I like that narrative there where they've been playing a bunch of golf together, which I do think that little stuff adds up. I do. Talk about off the field stuff that ends up showing up on the field. That's some of it. Now, I'm probably most interested in betting on like Ray McLeod or even Casey Washington, who I do think the offense will not change if Darnell Mooney is out. So Darnell Mooney is kind of expected to sit, I think, at this point in week one. And so with that, Casey Washington is going to step up into the Darnell Mooney role. It's just whether or not that's going to mean maybe more two tight end sets, or will Ray McLeod end up getting some more snaps? He's someone that played a lot for them last year. I probably would bet on Ray McLeod to get more work. And so either way, though, I'm looking to see if we get any good lines for them. For the Bucs, I mean, Emeka Egbuka has been getting a bunch of hype, and you look at how thin they are, being a rookie tight end or a rookie receiver, you do expect him to get a lot of work, I would say, in this game. But really, it also does feel a little bit like a stay away for me in that regard, unless, again, we're game stacking. So really do like the Bijan Robinson under, but if you guys hate that, I also understand there. So from there, we got Cleveland versus Cincinnati. This could be an ultimate trap spot. Let's just admit that. These games are always a little bit more interesting than maybe they seemed on paper. Do want to call out, though, when we look at the lines that we're getting here, like Jerome Ford at 35.5 rush yards, that instantly tells me that Vegas thinks there's a good chance that Dylan Sampson is the RB1, like he has been throughout preseason. He's actually been the starting running back. He's someone that does, at this point, seem like a better version, honestly, of Jerome Ford. And so might as well get the younger running backs some work. And so I will say, if we're getting some receiving yards prop bets for Dylan Sampson, or even his rush yards at about the same line, I'm probably more inclined to bet on that over. Now, that being said, we look at some of the other bets that we're getting receiving yards lines. In some regards, I do think that this is similar to like A.J. Brown and also Devonta Smith, but there is obviously a bigger gap between Jamar Chase and also T. Higgins. That being said, 20-yard difference, when everyone knows that Jamar Chase is going to get a lot of work, I don't know, that does seem to be pretty darn high for me. I do expect a very healthy target share to go to someone like Cedric Tillman, especially with Joe Flacco, who does tend to air it out. By all reports throughout camp, it's really Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman, and then whoever else is the next receiver is a big question mark. And so this bet ends up being like a kind of interesting one there with Joe Flacco in there. And, you know, reports haven't been bad for Tillman. I don't hate that. Chase Brown is reportedly going to get some more work in the passing game as well. We'll see if that ends up happening. Not exactly a bet that I feel like I need to go out of my way to target there as well. We'll jump on into Denver versus Tennessee. So I will say Cam Ward did look impressive during the preseason, had some really sharp throws. That's it though. The Titans look terrible themselves. And so not really like a team that I'm trying to bet on. I do think this line for Bo Nix is interesting, especially given the fact that you got J.K. Dobbins there, R.J. Harvey there. I could see it just be more of a pass-heavy script to start the season. Now, Titans defense, not as bad as people, kind of think. And maybe that's what's leading to the little line there for him. But I do like Bo Nix to really have a good game passing the football. And if you look at it, if that happens, Courtland Sutton's lines are pretty low to me. Marvin Mims, we'll see if he ends up being kind of the receiver 2, or will it be kind of split between Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, kind of like we saw last year where it was like a game-by-game situation. And that's something that we just don't want to mess around with. If we're betting on a Denver Broncos player, it's Bo Nix or Courtland Sutton, and maybe Evan Ingram at this point as well, because his role should be pretty locked in there as well. Now, looking at the Tennessee side of it, I will say I'm pretty shocked at this line here for Tyler Lockett, because he should be in for a very solid role to start the season. Whether DK steps up into that role as the season progresses, we'll see. But at the start of the season, I expect Tyler Lockett to get a healthy amount of looks. And if they're playing from behind, which I kind of expect to happen, I don't really get this line, to be honest with you. I know he tailed off at the end of the season last year with JSN really stepping up, but the Seahawks offense really changed mid-season. And so right now, Tyler Lockett 2.5 receptions seems just like such a great bet. And then that being said, guys, looking at like Courtland Sutton for his receptions as well, I don't really understand the line being at 4.5. And I get that's probably just because of like last year's like results for the Titans, where teams just weren't passing it against them pretty much because you just would choose to run it against them. Like that was my biggest takeaway. That's not to like say that they weren't good stopping the pass, not to say that at all, but like I'd like Courtland Sutton to get over 4.5 receptions is what I'm trying to say here. And part of that is that I do think he's going to get a healthy target share as well. Now we move on into the Green Bay Packers versus the Detroit Lions, a game that definitely got a little bit more interesting with Micah Parsons being a part of the Green Bay Packers as well. So I do want to call it like rush yards for Josh Jacobs is interesting just because you look at how banged up the Packers are at the receiver spot. Like Jaden Reed could potentially go in the IR. There's like rumblings that could end up happening. Dontavian Wicks is also someone that I do not expect to really play that much at the start of the season as well. So I do think this could lead to it being more of a Josh Jacobs game in terms of rush attempts. Like that could be a spot that we get to, although I will say at 17, it's probably correct. The player that I'm definitely most excited for is going to be Matthew Golden. Now, his line being at like 2.5 for the baseline, the Goblin line, I do think he has a great chance to get 3 receptions. Okay, we could bet on targets. I'd probably bet him to get 6 targets. It's just whether or not those result in them being catches. He will get some deep shots. He will get some design plays. I certainly believe that. He has already instantly become the receiver number 1. That being said, yes, Romeo Doubs is still there. Jordan Love does love Romeo Doubs a bunch. You do have Tucker Kraft there as well, who you would expect to play a bunch. And him at 3.5 receptions seems to be a very low line as well. Matt LaFleur has been very vocal about saying, yes, we need to get Tucker Kraft more involved. He's been some of that, the community's starting to catch up with hype-wise on Tucker Kraft. And I've obviously been hyping up a decent amount before that, really like his talents. And those 2 lines to me did stand out a bunch. And they both are elevated if Jaden Reed sits. And again, I am expecting him to sit. I do not expect him to play. He just got off a walking boot like 2 days prior to me recording this, which is Friday, the 29th. So the 27th or so. And he still wasn't like practicing. So that doesn't bode well for him. And so that's where I'm like, yes, let's bet on some of those over receptions. Now, it is worth calling out Isaac Tesla as well here, guys. 18.5 receiving yards. They did get rid of Tim Patrick, seemingly in favor of Isaac Tesla. Tesla's been someone that I highlighted as my pre-draft favorite deep sleeper at the receiver spot, and he proved me why throughout camp. I mean, he looked like a stud, don't get me wrong. But a lot of people are trying to say Puka Nacua 2.0. I don't necessarily see that, because the whole point of me being on Puka Nacua and telling you guys that 2 years ago was that he could step up into that receiver number 2 spot for the LA Rams that year, and actually turned out that was slightly wrong, because he ended up being the receiver number 1 for them. But the talent was there throughout preseason. The signs were there throughout preseason, where that's true with Tesla, with the signs being there, but you still have Jameson Williams. You still have Jahmyr Gibbs. You still have David Montgomery. You still have 5 players that are going to be ahead of you, really, regardless. Okay? Injuries would have to occur. So I don't expect that. But could he hit a couple of shots there to get over 18.5 receiving yards? Certainly. But if we are betting on players in this game, it's going to be on Matthew Golden over 3.5 receptions, if they give that to you. And then I do like Tucker Kraft to get over 3.5. Now, I do need to call out Detroit as well. So the Packers' weakness right now is in the cornerback spot. It seems like Bo Melton made their roster as a converted receiver, which, I mean, he looked good in the preseason for that matter, but it's obviously not a good thing. I think that's actually part of the reasons as to why they felt the need to go out and get Micah Parsons. That takes a lot of pressure off the cornerbacks if the quarterback doesn't have that much time to throw the football. And all in all, I'm not that worried. But that being said, Williams has gotten so much hype out of Lions camp, to the point where we have to start thinking about whether or not St. Brown's going to be the certified receiver number 1 in this offense fantasy wise. And this line then just ends up being extremely low to me, especially again with Micah Parsons there. Does this lead to a route tree that's more trimmed down for the game? A few plays here and there, to the point where it leads to maybe another easy reception for Jameson Williams. And so that's an intriguing bet for me there. 3.5 receptions, feel decent about that one. Now let's go ahead and jump on into the Rams versus the Texans. It's crazy, guys. Nick Chubb, he looked great in the preseason. Oh my goodness. Compared to last year's film where he looked done, he looked completely washed. His legs just were not there. Burst wise, strength wise, they're still there, but he looked great. He looked great. I wouldn't say he looked like his peak self by any means, but looked much better than he did last year. Okay. And we know that Joe Mixon's going to be out. I will say Woody Marks was someone that I had to rewatch his film on and was very impressed with the second rewatch, not as much as the first watch. I can't tell if that's more based off the Panthers just being terrible because he was playing in the preseason against them, but he was impressive. Good in the passing game. He kind of checked all the boxes. But the issue with Woody Marks is, I don't think he's a better runner than Nick Chubb. I don't think he's a better pass catcher than Dario Gumbawale, and probably not a better third down back. And then Dameon Pierce is kind of a better runner as well. But I do think combining it all together, he's the best at all 3 of those. So it'll be interesting to see what that kind of dynamic develops into throughout the season. But for week 1, Nick Chubb for over 43.5 rush yards is a little bit interesting. Passing TDs, a lot of people are worried about Matthew Stafford and his health. I am not. This has been something that's occurred basically every single offseason for the past 3 years. So I'm kind of just oh, well. I think for the time being as well, at the start of this season, we should just be looking at Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and being all right, it should be closer to a 50-50 than this. That should not be happening. That big yards difference should not be happening. And so if you want to get to Devontae Adams for over 56.5 receiving yards, I don't mind that. By all reports, it kind of has seemed like that as well coming out of camp. Tyler Higbee is someone I'm interested in in this game as well. He really came on at the end of the season last year for the Rams, and he should be playing at least 65% of snaps, if not more than that. And this game does have a chance to end up being a little bit more of a shootout. And if that ends up occurring, then yeah, we're going to like that a little bit more for Tyler Higbee. This is another one where if you want to bet on his over 3.5 receptions, by all means, you could end up doing that. The only issue that we have with Sean McVay sometimes is that he is someone that will kind of game script a game for a player. So they might just be we're not going to throw this to the tight end this week, and he's asked to block a little bit more and just do kind of pointless routes. That could end up happening, but I will say 3.5 receptions for him is intriguing there as well. And then from there, I do need to call out like Christian Kirk for the Texans. This is another one where I do like it at over 3.5 receptions. He's going to be the receiver number 2 in that offense. That being said, we're looking at Nico Collins as well. 5.5 receptions is also an interesting line there as well. But it is worth calling out that there's a slight payout boost for Christian Kirk for over 3.5 receptions there. If we look at the preseason, again, didn't play much throughout the preseason, don't really care, but 2 targets, 2 receptions, 13 yards, and limited playing time there. So do like that there. And that was with CJ Stroud in that quarterback. So he is definitely locked into that receiver number 2 role and basically should play a bunch. And then lastly, let's go ahead and look at this last game between the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. So some people are not going to like this answer, but when it comes to this game, I tend to just be like, I don't want to bet on it. I just want to enjoy it as a football fan. Because, some games are definitely more enjoyable when you have some skin in the game. This one is like, I just want to watch it as a football fan rather than have some bets on it. I will say James Cook, guys, talent-wise, I don't think it's a hot take like to say he's like a top 10 running back talent. It's just always whether or not the workload's going to be there for him. He's signed early enough to the point where like I'm not worried about him getting off to a very slow start. So that was a bet that kind of stood out to me. Passing TDs wise, I like them both to get over 2. I do. Receiving yards. An interesting spot for me this year is like Rashad Bateman. I think he could end up taking kind of the Jameson Williams step up, and it ends up being more of a close situation in regards to like Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman. So I'm kind of paying attention to that. And we also do need to get an update for the Bills of whether or not Khalil Shakir is going to play. I do think if Shakir sits, guys, Dalton Kincaid ends up being a smash spot because he does step up into like the slot role, which is a big reason as to why he struggled last year, because it was more of the Khalil Shakir spot then instead. So he'll be more of a slot tight end. Might see a little bit more of Dawson Knox. Is Dawson Knox banged up? That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter for Dalton Kincaid there. So all reports are suggesting that Khalil Shakir is going to be good to go, but I did want to call that out. Now, guys, before we go ahead and get into the bets of the day for this video, or bets of the week for this video, do want to ask you guys to just like the video. That does about a bunch. Subscribe to the channel if you guys have not done so before. And also worth calling out as well, if you guys are choosing to play on Underdog, make sure to use the promo code 925 spelled out that way. But if you guys are also maybe looking to bet on some other sites, Prize Picks, Sleeper, or better, use the promo code 9TO5. Links to those are all in the description below. That's just a simple and easy way to help with the channel. And that's a little thing that actually goes a far way in terms of me being able to keep putting out content and really keep the membership price low on the 9to5 website as well. So that is appreciated when you guys do that. Again, links to those are in the description below. If you guys are signed up for the first time, honestly, it's a great time to do that as well. Like on Sleeper right now, there's like 4 discounts. On Better, they do daily discounts, which is also awesome. Underdog has a bunch of discounts. Prize Picks has a free square for Dak Prescott as well. Like, this is free money that they're trying to toss at you guys. So again, take advantage, Sleeper, Better, Underdog, and Prize Picks. All right, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and give you guys 12 bets, 14 bets that I like. Okay, 12 bets on Prize Picks and 3 bets on Underdog. Apologies for that. 15 bets total. Again, just kind of recapping real quickly, I do think that this game between the Chargers and the Chiefs could be a little bit risky just with maybe the field conditions not being as on par as we would like. But Xavier Worthy with Rice out, 5.5 receptions, he should be heavily involved in the passing game. Again, I actually like Tyquan Thornton in that game. We'll touch on that. I'll do a separate video for that game later on. But Justin Herbert for his passing yards, I do think it'll be more of a pass-heavy script to start the season. Jonathan Taylor over 17.5 rush attempts going against Miami. That's one of the bets that I really like, especially if Josh Downs is out. DeAndre Swift as well. Currently banged up with Roshan Johnson and Kyle Managai. I do like Kyle Managai a decent amount, but if those two are end up being a little bit banged up, then DeAndre Swift for over his rush yard should be a very good bet. Do expect DJ Moore to get some rushes if those two running backs do end up sitting. DK Metcalf being the receiver number 1 for Aaron Rodgers to get over 4.5 receptions. That's a crazy line to me. That should be at 5. Whether or not he gets there against the Jets, we will see, but he should get peppered with targets in that game. And then Zach Ertz for over 3.5 receptions. With Terry McLaurin not practicing or playing throughout most of training camp, I just think that could lead to a little bit more chemistry developed for Zach Ertz there. And then we go ahead and jump on into more of some like demon prop bets here. So boosted payouts. If you guys are someone that's not betting on Prize Picks, they're just boosted payouts because the odds are not as likely. Theo Johnson over 2.5 receptions though in a game against the Commanders where they are projected to lose by like 6 points. That leads to more of a pass-heavy script. If it's more of a pass-heavy script, Theo Johnson should get at least 4 targets, probably 5 targets in this game. Just needs to convert those into 3 catches. I'm a little bit concerned about Russell Wilson being the quarterback, but still, same offense. We feel good about that. James Conner, a bet that I don't necessarily love as much as the Jonathan Taylor over rushing attempts, but this is a game where they are projected to win by a lot, and so you expect a heavy run game. Tyler Lockett should be heavily involved in the passing game. Their underdogs should be a very pass-heavy script in the second half of that game. Like that one a lot. And then, guys, I do think Wicks and also Jane Reed are going to sit, so Tucker Kraft over 3.5 receptions feels like a great bet. Don't really understand why Courtland Sutton's only have 4.5 receptions. He's going to get peppered with targets throughout this year, probably 7 targets per game. Should be a base of him being at 5 receptions. And then Jameson Williams, more of just a bet on maybe the Packers DBs not being that good. And then we go ahead here and just take a peek at some of my underdog bets. Michael Pittman Jr. to get over 46.5 receiving yards, kind of a bet on Josh Downs being inactive in this game or not being as healthy. He should get a lot of targets, and I do think it's a slight quarterback upgrade from last year. Matthew Golden, 3.5 receptions. I do think will be a focal point of this offense. I don't think many people are like realizing that. Whether that happens in week 1, we'll see. And then Christian Kirk should be on the field a bunch, guys. 3.5 receptions seems like an egregiously low line for him. All right, that's going to do it for this video. Do you want to call it the 9to5sports.com website? There we have prize-based and underdog prop tools for you guys, as well as NFL DFS tools. As I'm recording this video, I'm finishing up an update for the NFL DFS cheat sheet, and then I will be having another update as well for the prize-based and underdog prop tools, as well as hopefully adding in some more prop sites as well. I hope by Thursday. I think I'll have that done. It's almost done, basically, so we'll see. Working on some college football tools as well, but all that is going to be available for you guys on 9to5sports.com for a low monthly cost right now of $10 a month. Leave a like on the video, guys, subscribe to the channel, and as always, let's keep cashing.